Great Expectations, Chapter 3. It was a rimy morning. I had seen the damp lying on the outside of my little window, as if some goblin had been crying there all night and using the window for a pocket handkerchief. Now I saw the damp lying on the bare hedges and spare grass, like a coarser sort of spider's webs. On every rail and gate wet lay clammy, and the marsh mist was so thick that the wooden finger on the post directing people to our village was invisible to me until I was quite close under it. Then, as I looked up at it while it dripped, it seemed to my oppressed conscience like a phantom devoting me to the hulks. The mist was heavier yet when I got out upon the marshes, so that instead of my running at everything seemed to run at me. The gates and dikes and banks came bursting at me through the mist, as if they cried, "A boy with somebody else's pork pie! Stop him!" The cattle came upon me with like suddenness, staring out of their eyes and steaming out of their nostrils. "Helloa, young thief!" one black ox with a white cravat on, who even had to my awakened conscience something of a clerical air, fixed me so obstinately with his eyes, and moved his blunt head round in such an accusatory manner as I moved round, that I blubbered out to him, "I couldn't help it, sir. It wasn't for myself I took it." Upon which he put down his head, blew a cloud of smoke out of his nose, and vanished with a kick up of his hind legs and a flourish of his tail. I had just crossed a ditch, which I knew to be very near the battery, and had just scrambled up the mound beyond the ditch, when I saw the man sitting before me. His back was towards me, and he had his arms folded and was nodding forward, heavy with sleep. I went forward softly and touched him on the shoulder. He instantly jumped up, and it was not the same man, but another man. And yet this man was dressed in coarse grey too, and had a great iron on his leg, and was lame and cold, and was everything that the other man was, except that he had not the same face. All this I saw in a moment. He swore an oath at me, made a hit at me. It was a round, weak blow that missed me and almost knocked himself down, for it made him stumble, and then he ran into the mist, stumbling, and I lost him. "It's the young man," I thought, feeling my heart shoot. I dare say I should have felt a pain in my liver too if I'd known where it was. I was soon at the battery after that, and there was the right man, hugging himself and limping to and fro, waiting for me. He was awfully cold. I half expected to see him drop down before my face and die of deadly cold. His eyes looked so awfully hungry too, and when I handed him the file and he laid it down on the grass, it occurred to me he would have tried to eat it if he had not seen my bundle. He did not turn me upside down this time to get at what I had, but left me right side upwards while I opened the bundle and emptied my pockets. "What's in the bottle, boy?" said he. "Brandy," said I. He was already handing mincemeat down his throat in the most curious manner, more like a man who was putting it away somewhere in a violent fury than a man who was eating it, but he left off to take some of the liquor. He shivered all the while so violently that it was quite as much as he could do to keep the neck of the bottle between his teeth without biting it off. "I'll eat my breakfast afore they're the death of me," said he. He was gobbling mincemeat, meat bone, bread, cheese and pork pie all at once, staring distrustfully while he did so at the mist all around us, and often stopping to listen. Some real or fancied sound upon the marsh now gave him a start, and he said suddenly, "You're not a deceiving imp. You brought no one with you?" Something clicked in his throat as if he had works in him like a clock and was going to strike, and he smeared his ragged rough sleeve over his eyes. Pitying his desolation and watching him as he gradually settled down upon the pie, I made bold to say, "I'm glad you enjoy it." "Thank'ee, my boy, I do." "I'm afraid you won't leave any of it for him," said I timidly, after a silence during which I had hesitated as to the politeness of making the remark. "Leave any for him? Who's him?" said my friend, stopping in his crunching of pie crust. "The young man that you spoke of, that was hid with you." "Oh, ah!" he returned with something like a gruff laugh. "Him, yes, he don't want no wittles." I thought he looked as if he did, said I. The man stopped eating and regarded me with the keenest scrutiny and the greatest surprise. Looked? When? Just now. Where? Yonder, said I, pointing over there where I found him, nodding asleep, and thought it was you. He held me by the collar and stared at me so that I began to think his first idea about cutting my throat had revived. Dressed like you know, only with a hat, I explained, trembling, and I was very anxious to put this delicately, and with the same reason for wanting to borrow a file. Didn't you hear the cannon last night? Then there was firing, he said to himself. But this man, did you notice anything in him? He had a badly bruised face, said I, recalling what I hardly knew I knew. Not here, exclaimed the man, striking his left cheek mercilessly with the flat of his hand. Yes, there. Where is he? He crammed what little food was left into the breast of his grey jacket. Show me the way he went. I'll pull him down like a bloodhound. Curse this iron on my sore leg. Give us hold of the file, boy. I indicated in what direction the mist had shrouded the other man, and he looked up at it for an instant, but he was down on the rank wet grass, filing at his iron like a madman, and not minding me or minding his own leg, which had an old chafe upon it and was bloody, but which he handled as roughly as if it had no more feeling in it than the file. I told him I must go, but he took no notice, so I thought the best thing I could do was to slip off. The last I saw of him, his head was bent over his knee, and he was working hard at his fetter, muttering at it and at his leg. The last I heard of him, I stopped in the mist to listen, and the file was still going.